of Austin, in the woods.
You can verify it's around $1,500 a month. I mean, $1,500 a night.
One cabin. I don't know, but it's called Lost Pines. I can look it up real quick. It's run by like Four Seasons or Omni Hotel. It's run by Hyatt, and it's $500 a night. $518 a night. But yeah, it's the same
For
thing.
camping.
It's in the middle. Yeah, it's in the middle of a bunch of pine trees, and they've got a golf course and a inclusive spa and buffet. So you don't have to leave, right? But you're 30 minutes away from downtown Austin. So
Civilization,
really,
right?
Yeah.
Wait, you're golfing in the woods.
Right. Yeah, they had to bulldoze the trees, right, to make the fairway, but
there's going to be like 40 or 50 trees between the resort and the main road.
Right. No, I've so like when I've done Uber to go pick somebody up from there, I think it takes about 10 minutes to drive through their entrance from the highway to the actual pickup spot at the hotel. Jeez. So you like drive through the entire
10
resort.
minutes with no traffic impacting.
No. It's a private road.
So that's probably a 30-minute walk.
Yeah, it's huge. So, and that place is just massive. But yeah, it's all the people that live in the city and don't ever experience it. And
glamorous camping, they're calling it glamping.
I mean, you can go to a state park for $10 overnight if you bring your own tent, right?
Yeah.
But people just don't understand that.
They're paying up to 300 euros for a single tent.
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, it is a lot of money. But I mean, if they have $20,000 a month in discretionary spending, then they can afford it. So
they have a digital nomad. You have 90-day free visas and digital nomad visas in Morocco. So if you're over there with
interesting,
if you work off of the computer, you can legitimately go over there and have an extended stay. And they have actual residency over there between $700 and $750 a month for the standard of living, where you get that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the digital nomad. I don't know if this is the best time to bring it up, but
oh no, this is
the main distinction from the taxes that I can find out is that, say you had a remote job that's based in the U.S. and they've been firing a lot of people that they found out were like in Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, and it looks like the only way to protect yourself was to be like some kind of contract worker. And that, that makes sense because I'm already a contract worker right now with Uber and whatnot.
Well, but do 1099 contract with somebody. Digital nomad, it can be like I teach online. Out of, I think we have a base in Taiwan. So if I went to the Philippines, I get paid off the computer. It is not a local currency. I would get a digital nomad visa.
Hold on, I need to change my headset real quick. But I can still hear you. I'll put it back on speakers.
Okay. Be right back. Yeah, that was the other issue I had. My headset died. My second and third headset. I was like, oh Jesus. But we had the business that we have, one in Nevada, and we have another one in Florida. And if I am like working the contracts and stuff to that effect, closing real estate deals and stuff like that over the phone and over the computer while living in uh, Japan. I've got a U.S. bank account. The money is direct deposited out there and then wire transferred to Japan kind of situation. Then because the money is in America and coming to Japan, it wasn't earned in Japan. It was earned off the computer while I was in Japan. The ideology of that is that your income is not from a local employer. And as long as your income is not from a local employer, you qualify as a digital. Now, the people that you were talking about that got fired off of their jobs, they were supposed to be working from home, not working from another country. And a lot of them probably got fired because they utilized a VPN to mask their location so that their employer thought they were working in one location, but they were actually working in another location. And that area of fraud would not be tolerated. So, but if in the event that you notified your employer, you're like, hey, I'm working off the computer, we're going to go to, Singapore, but we still got internet. Let me know if you need something, I'll fly back. They're not going to fire you if they know where you're working, and especially if you're meeting all of your numbers. But like, I think we talked about this last week, but Google and a few other companies are having a mass recall to mandatory in-person employment. So everybody that was working off of the computer at home now have to show up to work every day and clock in to get paid. And that is where the issue came about, where we kind of took advantage of a good thing. And then after we finished taking advantage of a good thing, the employers found out about it, started shutting everybody down. But oh, and Tesla did it too. He said it is some kind of violation for the company because they need to pay taxes for your working abroad. Well, okay, they technically do not have to pay taxes for you to work abroad if you are visiting another country. But if you get residency and citizenship in another country where they are now officially paying a foreign employee, then that's a different scenario. So, like, for example, if I'm on a work visa and I go to Taiwan for a certain period of time, like, look, there you go. You say some rules are longer than 180 days. It's 181 days. You're considered a citizen, but 181 days is 6 months. If you went out there for 4 months or 4 or 5 months and then you came back, if you went out there for 2 or 3 months and then you came back, you would not be considered a foreigner. But if you went out there for a year, yeah, you moved, you relocated, you don't live in America anymore. Oh yeah, he said Dell return to Austin, return to the computers in Austin, Texas. But yeah, the digital nomad thing was crazy. Mike was saying that the season prices go up to $160 per day for the camping, but the cabins that they have out there are like state park cabins are like $60 per day. Yeah. If you want to trade stocks and not pay capital gains, you have to live in Puerto Rico for at least 6 months. Yes, I verified that. Up until, well, we only got a little late now. If you would have already changed your residency to Puerto Rico in like June or maybe May of this year, you could have gotten a tax citizenship thing over there where you would have been exempt from taxation for upward of like 10 to 20 years. But that type of scenario is not possible for people that find out about it now, because you have to already be in the process of getting your citizenship where it would be verified before the 1st of January. So 2026, you can go there and get a reduced rate, but it's not going to be free. It's not going to be tax exempt. But if you're making money in Puerto Rico, they're not going to have a lot of capital gains tax on you in Puerto Rico employment. So if you move there, you live there, you work there for a local place, yeah. But if you are getting capital gains from like somewhere else in America, and you don't have local banks in Puerto Rico, you've been there for the last 6 months, but you're banking out of, say, Tennessee, like your primary bank is in Tennessee, and you're working off your computer, you're still. So any foreign taxation that they would give you, short any tax exemptions from taxation from the United States, would be something that you'd have to pay. And that's one of the things you consider when you're doing dual citizenship, because you have to file as an American if you're not going to renounce your citizenship as in America, and then you have to file in the country that you're in. And if you go to a country that has tax reciprocity with the United States, you will not be taxed twice. So you would first claim it with the United States and then show the country you're living in that you file taxes for this income in the United States, and whatever exemptions they're going to give you, you would get. But you would essentially be living in a foreign tax exempt country, because those foreign tax exempt countries have tax reciprocity with the United States, where the United States is going to tax you for it when you report it. But in order to be a digital nomad in those countries, you have to report a personal income of some kind to the country in order for you to stay there. And that personal income is reported to the United States, because outside of business taxation, personal income is public record kind of scenario. They have to say, well, this is how many Americans stay, blah, 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 blah. And they have caps as to the minimum quantity of money that you can make in order to stay there. So if you're not making enough money, you can't be there as a citizen. But their trade markets, like you were pointing up there fantastically, so trade markets in most countries around the world are going to limit you to being at least a resident or citizen of the country in order to trade in their market, unless you find a third-party trading platform that trades with their local trade market. So like a international third-party trading platform, where you might buy the ETFs of the stock with the third party, and a third party hold those stocks with the primary investor, something like that. Shit, you don't need $6,000 a month. You don't need $6,000 a month. I've already covered the Philippines before. $1,000 a month can do it. $2,000 a month, you're living more than comfortable. If you're making $6,000 a month, but you're thinking about like the standard of living in Texas. And if you take the standard of living in Texas and bring it to, go ahead and say.
Yeah, well, I was talking about, just my, like my bills and my responsibilities, you know what I mean? So if I was to go tomorrow to Philippines, I'd need
your
to generate.
Standard of living would be $1,000 in the Philippines. Your current standard of living is $1,000 in the Philippines. Now,
and I'm good with that, but I'm just talking about I'd still have to pay bills.
No, you mean like pay for the Philippines and pay for your American place too?
Yeah, I have other obligations here in the United States.
Oh, now that might cost you $6,000 if you're paying for the United States. But if you're just paying for the Philippines, I was just about to say, double your standard of living in America, that will cost you $2,000 in the Philippines.
Right. I can live in a few $100 a month apartment. I don't have a problem with that. But everything I've found is like, you got to find good internet.
The cost of living there, depending on which city you go to, is going to range between $500 and $1,500 a month for anywhere between a 1 and 4 bedroom, either apartment or a villa. And that is equivalent to getting like a 4-bedroom house. And it's pretty decent sized, upward of, I want to say around 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. But that's like upscale living in the Philippines. So you're talking about like upper middle class, lower upper class standard of living for $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month at the most, where your entire standard of living, including travel and stuff to that effect, all of that is included in that standard of living, not just the rent. In the United States, we look at, because the rent is 60% of our income, we think, well, 3 times the rent, that's our standard of living. So if you're paying like $2,000, $2,500 a month on your rent, you expect to have $6,000 to $8,000 a month income to cover any other essentials above the rent. But in other countries, when I give you guys a quote, it's like, well, after you take off that $500 or $750 for the rent, the rest of the standard of living is upward of another 3 times the rent idea, $1,500 total for the entire standard living. Even if you're eating out on a regular basis, partying on a regular basis, you're still not spending $2,000 a month. And shit, if you did that in Japan, because it's $750 a month for the standard of living in Japan. You do that in Japan, you are spending $9,000 a year in Japan. A year. So you're talking about $6,000 a month in the Philippines. You'd be spending $9,000 a year in Japan. And since they're paying for your kids, you'd still be paying $9,000 a year with 5 kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's advantages everywhere, and then Japan is such a cleaner place than a lot of other places in Southeast Asia.
They got a lot of rules, though.
Right.
You can't eat on the bus. They'll put you in jail.
Yeah.
I'll be mad at the bitch. That's exactly what I'm gonna be eating.
It's some things are considered impolite,
They have a different infrastructure over there, because over in Asia, your reputation, your politeness, is how your line of credit is. So if you're an asshole, you're not likely to borrow money from anybody, and you're not likely to do much business with many individuals, because it is highly based on your personal integrity. So the way we behave as Americans, some of us at least, it wouldn't fly out there.
Yep. And I mean, all that nonsense, how some people act anyways today, is just it just holds us back.
It sets us back a lot, as a matter of fact. It doesn't just hold us back. I feel like we lose ground on social economic progress with some of the things that I see on social media. I'm very, very disappointed. And without diving too far into politics, when I seen those girls twerking for the presidential campaign, I was sitting here like, that was the one time that I would have thought that y'all would not do that. Right. Out of all the other places that could have happened, that could have happened at the inauguration, that could have happened as a celebration after you won, but you are running a campaign as a first female president advocate, and you are promoting women selling their bodies by dancing on a stage in skimpy outfits as part of your platform. It was degrading to watch. And normally I have no problem with it, but I'm like, nah, this is like the kind of stuff you do during a Super Bowl or like fight night, but not during a presidential campaign. So we set ourselves back a lot of the
times. Yep.
I'm looking, we have they built a bridge in Morocco. It's a direct bridge between Artisan in Fez and a customer in New York or Tokyo. They had built this bridge, and it is a weirdly profitable business that they have built here, and it is a curated, tech-enabled marketplace for high-end Moroccan crafts. This isn't like the chaos that you see on the bazaar or like Este, but it is like a boutique gallery.
Okay.
And this business isn't just selling products; it's selling the stories of the people who made the product. So this is the type of small entrepreneurial type business that you can get into in Morocco, where you can find people that got something good. Like you walk by a guy's with what do you call that? Whittling a stick, and
Oh
he
yeah,
makes it into a
carving.
cane. Yeah,
Right.
and you're like, oh, that looks good. You got a good talent there. I'll sell these for you. And you find them and you get their backstory, and then you put their backstory on their cane, and it's almost like, Build a Bear. You have a whole history behind this item that you go buy, and they're turning that into a niche. So people aren't just buying products because they look nice. They're buying products because the product has a story to tell.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely. I
that's
mean,
something that we haven't done.
yep. That's why people like doing air. You can go and live in somebody's house and feel like you're a part of the city for that time that you're vacationing, right? You get to go to a
Mhm.
neighborhood or a nice apartment that doesn't feel like a hotel. So anything that you can sell that's like an experience for people that's unique, people will pay for it.
Yeah, they do have Airbnb in Morocco, but
Oh,
they
nice.
have a guy named Yusuf had built a shop, and he built a platform around it where he started focusing on small niches like hand woven Berber carpets, and he would travel to remote villages himself and just uh, partner with these individuals to pick up their hand woven carpets and then take them and go and sell them. And
Yeah.
he's got this really weird model. He has the hand picked carpet. He gets the story behind who weaved it together, and then he puts up a profile of each of the people who made the product, and then he sells that whole scenario where almost like a storybook. Uh, Created by so and so, like for example, Fita of the Ati Bagozamez tribe, inspired by Athens mountains. That's a specific carpet. That carpet that was made in the Athens mountain by a specific Ati tribe is uh, what you're going to buy, and now that's way more authentic than getting a pair of Jordans, in my opinion.
Uh, well, what do you have you ever heard of the company called Sonder, Sonder? It just went
No.
it just went bankrupt. What they were like Airbnb, but
Mhm.
instead of Airbnb, they partnered with Marriott. So say that there's a nice apartment building in New York City,
Mhm.
and you want to rent it like Airbnb, but you want all the services of a hotel. So they
Right.
had like all the staff and everything involved. They would clean your room every day, make your bed. Um, so it's like renting a hotel style Airbnb. Well, they just went bankrupt last month, but that's an interesting market, and I haven't seen anybody else come up with an idea to replace that.
He made an Airbnb model that does housekeeping.
Yeah, so they targeted specific, um, higher end markets like London, New York, um,
Mhm.
San Francisco, but they were also here in Austin, and they actually had some suburban houses as well. And the deal is like between a certain time of the day, between like I think like 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., you could get housekeeping, and from
Mhm.
like 1 to 2, you could have meals dropped off. I mean, it was a really
Oh
cool
yeah,
concept. But
and nobody
there's so
does
many
that.
of yeah,
I think
yeah.
the VA is the only person that drops off meals right now.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, but they just couldn't manage their debt well enough, and so they just
They
they
went
just
bankrupt in
filed.
Austin.
Uh, no, they started in Canada, but they were worldwide. Um,
No,
I
where
can,
did they go bankrupt?
I mean worldwide.
Oh snap!
I don't know who they're. I don't know who. I think they're based out of Montreal, Canada. But they partnered with Marriott hotels, and that's like a really big hotel chain. And wherever they operated, they had Marriott service the apartments. So they would get like long-term contracts with landlords for like 2 years at a time, and then they would turn around and they would put them on the market on their platform or even on Airbnb. But it was kind of like a management company. Can't even pull up the website anymore, but you can like Google it and find out about it. It was a really good business model.
I think one of the issues with that business model was the labor cost.
Well, yeah, that's what killed them. And the market right now is so uncertain. In some areas, some people are not spending money.
Well, it takes a lot of manpower to service that type of platform, because renting the place out and then having a cleaning crew come and clean it up after they leave is one thing. Renting the place out and having somebody clean it every day like a hotel and then drop off food every day is a whole nother level of effort. And for the same price for the customer. So instead of having your cleaning service come in and clean the house once in between customers, you're cleaning the house sometimes every day for the one customer that is tearing it up every day. That's a lot more cost. But that's a dang good model as far as like convenience for the customer.
Yeah. It's still their website is still up. I'm trying to find any information.
They're dealing with some in Morocco, some different companies where they're setting up business registrations for individuals where they can get their permits and bank accounts and HR sites that are allowing them to get set up in Morocco with some Tangier free zones and getting their optimized tax incentives through official Morocco incentive charters that gives them a lot of tax breaks when they're building up some of these businesses. So they have some soft landing third party scenarios that it's really crazy what they're doing here, because they're building a supply chain by utilizing the demand of need, like the things that they just don't have. So stuff like automobiles and textiles. You have a Fatima firm that conducts environmental audits, and another one that helps factories implement energy saving measures. And each one of these things is a completely different market that, because it's a need, you can invest in it, build it up, and get paid for creating it. They're dealing with startups for educational, like trade, where you can learn how to be beneficial to the market you want to work in, where instead of them selling the work, they're selling the picks and shovels that you're going to use to go and put the work together. So like if you have a remote location that needs to be built, they're creating the construction company that paves the road to the facility, the contract with an electric company that's going to provide the electricity to the facility, and then the school that's going to educate the workers so that they can work at the facility.
It's like
and
remote.
All of the
Oh wow.
Remote work, and it's not just like remote work like on the computer, but it's like in the middle of nowhere remote work. And then they're creating a business on filling the blanks between this exclusive location and nearby society.
Right.
So they're doing renewable energy. They have what is that? Our Zantasi solar complex, where they're building more solar power so that they can have more efficient electricity. Because in a lot of those countries, they had an issue with not keeping up with the power needs, and they would have to have rolling blackouts to conserve the power. And they're offsetting that by building renewable energy facilities in order to put that. So these are all really fascinating investment opportunities for individuals, and a lot of these investment opportunities either in green energy, technology, agriculture, real estate, or low income at risk environments are all areas that are primarily in most countries around the world economic zones that are tax free or tax reduced and backed by their local government contracts, where you can get in there and start putting your money down and then turn a profit off of it and not receive as much or any taxation on any profits that come about for anywhere between 10 and 25 years, depending on which country you're in and which project you're working on. But I mean, when you and I think about investing in something, it ain't like putting gas in your tank when you start investing in some of this stuff. You're talking about putting down $250,000, $500,000, $1.5 million,
a lot of cash
to build something up, a lot of cash. So when you think about, well, they're not going to tax you on it, you're like, yeah, they're not going to $250,000 worth of taxation they don't have to pay, but the average American does not have the capabilities to just hop on a plane and just fly over there and, you know, invest in those bigger scale projects. But some of the smaller, like food processing plants, textile factories, large supermarkets, and other such things that are over there being built as we speak, are things that the average person with an extra $10,000 or $15,000 could slide down there and get started investing in something that could kind of edge it right on over the cliff of success that it needs, so that they would be able to experience the growth of a startup company without having to put in all the manpower. So what was your interpretation of that?
I think smaller markets, like where you can get into something niche like this, is good, because typical American doesn't have $250,000 to make large investments like that. I mean, so it's a good opportunity. I mean, that's interesting. I never knew construction stuff was like remote on computers.
Well, you're going to have your architectures, because you got to remember, who makes the blueprints? Like either the architect, the person that sketches the model of the building, and then the engineer tries to put up some extra information together as to how to make the building stand, and then recommend the certain type of materials that would allow the building to not collapse. And then you have the construction crew to take all those blueprints and put that into action. The person on their computer making the first draft of blueprints is not building it on site. They're doing a 3D model on their computer. And now we have 3D printers. You can use some software to create a 3D model on a computer, and then use 3D printers to print that 3D model to scale on a small coffee table and show what the finished product is supposed to look like. And that type of effort doesn't have to be done at the location the construction is being built. It just has to be presented. And now that we have digital technology where we can do video calls, Zoom calls, Google Meets, all of these other ways where we can connect across the world, you probably could have a person in Puerto Rico creating a project for Morocco and having their country of origin be Thailand, and decide to go to America on a vacation and never make it to Morocco, but getting paid for a project in Morocco. So yeah, the digital nomad thing is huge.
Yeah, finding a way to get into that too.
Well, first thing you got to do is you got to have your good, long, stable set of internet, like you said, backup power sources, stuff to that effect. I got to get me a new laptop. Before we go anywhere, we got to get us a $4,000 laptop. That way we can do this a lot better. But
yeah, my
I'm
laptop
operating
cost.
for $500.
Yeah, my laptop cost $300.
Oh, yours was cheaper than mine. Mine cost $500. I got mine off of Best Buy.
Yeah, I got mine in Walmart.
Walmart didn't have this one, and I got this one because it was advertised to have a SIM card capability, so that I could have unlimited internet from my phone company.
Oh wow,
Got a
nice.
computer, and it doesn't have SIM card capability. So I spent that $200 extra for a computer that doesn't do what I wanted it to do. So I was mad about that. But um, it still worked for me because this is a 2023 Lenovo Yoga i7, so it's pretty decent. But now I'm gonna have to get me one of those really massive gaming computers that has a processing speed, so I don't have all those drop frames, and
Right.
like 2 to 4 terabytes of RAM space, so that I'm not dealing with pixelation problems during the live podcast and loss of sound and all that stuff. And it might actually connect better to the internet. But either way, it's like a $4,000 computer. I'm like, I'm gonna have to wait on that. That's gonna be my Christmas present for 2026. I ain't
Yeah,
not getting
2026.
it right now. Not doing it this year. I'm gonna have to do a whole announcement like I got the computer, y'all. But you'll know because I'll be on time, because one of the issues that me showed up to the show is that my computer froze. But yeah, one of the first things you got to do with being a digital nomad is getting a computer. One of the other things that you do with a digital nomad is either establishing your own business. And if you're establishing your own business and you wanted to establish it in your own neighborhood, you could do it at your house. You could utilize your post office box as a primary address for the business. And actually, and I taught people this on a show before, you do not need to use the post office box as P.O. Box, whatever the post office box is. You can use the actual physical address of the post office box and have your post office box number identified as the suite for the post office box, and it is recognized as a genuine office space that you could have on your driver's license, that you could have identified for your business. You can get packages mailed to the post office box, whatever you got going on, and they will recognize that as a legitimate source for your business, which the IRS will mail you correspondence to, everything to that effect. And you could get your business set up like that, and having an American bank for your business is what solidifies the brick and mortar idea of your business. Then you take whatever business you have that you're working off a computer, fly to another country, and show that whatever banks that you set up in their country for the exact same business is going to pay you from outside of that country. The money will be wire transferred in from work that's happening in another country, and then you're going to spend it in their country. That's how the digital nomad thing works. And you just got to show them bank statements from your original country, like, hey, I'm getting this much money, no less than $2,000 to $2,500 a month worth of income is what you have to prove in most countries that we've been talking about, at least. And they'll give you residency or citizenship, and you can just stay there for up to 12 months. Some countries allow you to do it 2 to 5 years, but it's easier to do a 7-month stay and not have to renew your visa twice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's why that girl, I don't know if you heard, this girl was going back home for the holidays to visit her family, and while she was leaving, she got deported. That's why.
Oh
Because you
man.
think your paperwork is good, but it's not. And if it doesn't, when you're in the airport, that's when they ban you for 10 years. When you get deported, you can't come back right away. So her college education is done.
Might as well never come back, because 10 years is a long time.
That's it. Your future is dead. 10 years is a really long time. But that's the reason why they ban you like that. You shouldn't want to come back. You are red flagged from getting an airplane ticket to come back to this country for 10 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I started telling people about the digital nomad visas, because work visas work out the same. Similarly, not exactly the same. Work visas, you either show proof of employment from a third-party employer, or you are hired from one of the local companies and you're coming from out of the country and they're going to pay you there, and that's a work visa. But a digital nomad visa, you just got to show that you're making money from outside of the country and they will let you stay.
Yeah,
that's dope.
It is.
Hold on, wait. I'm trying to look at some of these things because we had quite a few of them. They have a weird business. There is a natural treasure that they're doing with this market. There's a thing called red gold, saffron from Taluine. Have you heard about saffron?
Saffron's expensive with spice.
Yeah. One of the world's finest liquid gold. They also have argan oil from the Southwest. So now they're doing mining. Farmers that are selling saffron by the gram, making more money than selling weed by the gram. And they have, I'm telling you, bro, it's a lot of money. And one of the funny things is that when I heard about this with the saffron, there was a guy that I used to know a few years ago that was talking about the hydroponic farms where they look like shipping containers, and it is its own ecosystem, and it grows
a bunch of vegetables.
Yeah, 10 times more product in a smaller space. In one tenth.
So those are more efficient than like using the land, but the problem that we still have with the infrastructure, just like with Bitcoin mining, is electricity still costs way too much. So it does cost a lot of money to, run the lighting in Texas. Our energy grid is just not very stable.
The reason why it's not as really popular as people might think it would be, because the output is ginormous. The input, like you say, is the cost of electricity. You would have to have somewhat of a solar power setup on your property that could offset what you're getting from the grid. That way you're not draining the grid. But if you had like a saffron scenario that you were utilizing from a probably off of an acre of property, you probably could have like 6 of these things on there, 6 to 10 of these things on there, and they're like gigantic warehouses full of just ecosystem building saffron. You could turn out way more money off of that than what it costs to make it. The only problem is that like saffron, like everything else, it takes a few months to grow it. So you're going to have to put a pretty penny into it to cover the light bill. And then when you start buying solar panels, you're looking at for a acre of property upward of between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of solar panels. So it's a startup cost that the average person can't afford to do. But if you got into it, it would be the type of business that would pay for itself. And any investment opportunities that you got yourself into with something like that would turn you over a massive profit. And people don't think about this, but when you think about starting up a business, if you started up a business with like a bunch of your buddies, and let's say y'all all agreed that y'all were going to invest a fixed quantity of number to get this thing off the ground, and then you're going to let the thing run itself to some degree. You could contract yourself to the business as a financial investor. And I found this out. It's the same thing that Donald Trump did when he loaned himself money for his campaign. You can contract yourself to the business as an investor for the quantity of money that you're going to be putting into the business, and have the agreement to pay yourself back with interest, whatever you want to pay yourself back with interest off of the initial investment. And then you say put up 50 grand, and if you're paying yourself back 500%, now you're getting back 250 grand off of your startup investment. Or if you're going to get it back as shares in the company, you put up 50 grand and now you got $250,000 worth of shares in the company. And if the shares are put out at, $25 a share or $200 a share, whatever, now you got that many shares worth of value in the company, where, especially if it's a dividend paying company, now you can start getting residual capital back. That's far more in access than the 50 grand that you put up, and don't have to do anything else. You just set up this business and you owe yourself money. It's crazy. I didn't realize this kind of stuff until I started researching it. And I'm like, wow. Instead of it being just dumping money into this business, I could put myself in a position where, like, for example, when these businesses go bankrupt, like the one you was talking about earlier.
Yes.
If you are contracted to the business, when the business liquidates its assets, you're one of the debt collectors.
Right.
So you get your money back. So you instead of going bottom up and saying, "Oh, I lost all my money because I tried to do this one startup," it's like, no, actually, the startup didn't go right, but I got reimbursed and got my money back out of it.
Yeah, that's still really great.
It typically only works when it did something. So, like, you had a successful business model like the Airbnb model you told me about, and it went under. As it was going under, you were probably one of the first ones that was paid off as it was going under. Because if you're the last one in line, you're not getting nothing. Because once you start selling all of the product and selling all of the properties and cutting off all of the labor, the whatever cash that's left is going to start being distributed to whatever bills that are left. But if you're one of the first ones paid off, your contract, whatever it was, you get your investment out of the company before all of the other debt collectors start getting their money. It went belly up. It was a good run, but you still got your investment, your initial investment, and that savvy way of thinking has not been part of our mindset until I stumbled across it. Because even when we heard Donald Trump do it, nobody ever thought, why didn't I start doing that? He did that in 2017. It's 2025. And I am just now talking about, like, I started up 3 businesses already and I didn't do that.
Yeah. It's a really good idea.
Oh, so you were telling me before you wanted to do some other ways to make money online or something like that, so that you can kind of retire out of the game. What skills do you have?
Well, let's see. I did 4 years, 4.5 years in the Marine Corps. I did 2 years as a dishwasher before the military, and then I did 12 years at the city government level in purchasing.
So what did you do there?
Just like buying and bidding out things for the utility company here in the city of Austin.
So market analysis, okay.
Yeah, like just buying stuff for the warehouse, contracts and bids for like large construction projects. Yeah.
Okay.
Then the last 4 years, Uber driver.
Okay, so you don't want to, with your current health, you don't want to go back into private security, because that's what you can do with a military background. And clearly you don't want to be a dishwasher. So the next thing would be a market analysis career, or subcontracted employment style for either the type of companies that you've worked with before, because that's a pretty good resume, or you could be an assessor of contracts, and you could also find brokers, which is a person that actually handles the deal to make sure that both sides bring their information to the table and exchange stuff. So like you're like the middleman of closing a deal. Those are good jobs that allows for your skill set. An assessor putting a price tag on something, showing how much it's worth, is you could analyze the paperwork based on somebody's projections, and then utilizing that paperwork, you can provide that from anywhere a response as to the market value of certain products. Um, I would have to dig deeper into because that's a specific niche, and then
Right.
it's even more of a niche based off of the ones that you were exclusively experienced in, but you've already got years of experience in it. And then if you
Right.
wanted to be more broad, you could be closer to a more generalized range, but generalized ranges can't charge as much as specialties, because specialties, you know the ins and outs of it like the back of your hand. But if you're trying to expand yourself a little bit further, you would be uh, doing, like I said, a market analysis style position in a more broader scale, similar to the job description that you've already done. And that could have you in a remote job if they just need you to assess the information, assess the contract, or assess the inventory or invoices, and make sure that everything's in order. Because every company requires somebody to make sure that the paperwork is in order, and
Yeah.
every company requires, so it's like an internal audit from a third party person,
Right.
and
And
that's
and I know I got plenty of experience, but I know like the job market's pretty crazy right now. And like let's say that I pull in 1,500 a week gross from driving Uber, because Austin's a lucrative tourist market. Um, how would I go? I don't want to go from that to making $20 an hour as some kind of admin assistant.
Well, one of the things that you do when you start building a business as a subcontractor is, the first step is you got to get your foot in the door. So you don't just
Absolutely.
quit Uber driving out the gate. That's
Right.
something that you do to maintain your standard of living. You have to
Right.
build your platform. So you have to build a site that's based off of your skill set. Put some imaging up there that kind of shows you analyzing something, or calculating some data, or drafting contracts or something like that. Everybody needs a contract drafter, especially if you're doing it in Austin, where you're familiar with the laws in Austin based on that market. Everybody needs a contract drafter. And if you're doing it cheaper than an attorney, everybody's looking for that, because attorneys are charging like $350 an hour. If you're charging 75, they're like, yeah, and you get
Right.
in there. So, and then when you have a lot of companies that you've worked with, and you're utilizing those companies, um, like you see the NASCARs that have the logo of all of the sponsors. If you're like, oh yeah, I did this one with Bank of America and that one, because you literally drafted contracts for them, now you have a reputation behind you of doing contracts for well-known companies, and now you can go from charging 75 to charging 150, $250 an hour for a contract, rather than a $350 contract from the attorney. But you can do that per contract and build up your clientele. Now, how it works is, after you build your site and build your image, you can reach out to certain companies in that market and negotiate with probably their human resources department your
Right.
capabilities to fulfill their ongoing demand for this particular type of service. You're going to get some no's because it's a cold call, but you're going to get some yeses, especially if they have a work quantity of incoming product that needs to be assessed, and a small quantity of outgoing, where if they had extra manpower, that you could help them expedite productivity of closing some deals. Then that's how you get your foot in the door. You still do your Uber thing, but they give you 3 to 5 projects a week. You start doing Uber a little less, and start doing, your at home job a little more. And then you're able to typically assess how long you think it should take. Try to do 150% of that as your projection, or overstate it and say, well, it should take 3 times as long, as you know that you can get it done, but you're going to get it done in the time and produce it for them, where you know that it's 1/3 faster than if you were slacking off. And at the end of the day, you would still be able to have extra time to do your Uber job and still fulfill the contract time. So if it's a project that would have took 10 days, you tell them, hey, I know most people average get it done in 15 days. I can get it done in like 7. You get it done in 5 because you're not working on the weekend, and then you get it back to them. They had a 10-day projection that they were hoping for, and you're like, yeah, I can get it done in less time than that. That starts building your reputation. Now, what happens is that as you start increasing your clientele and you start reducing the quantity of Uber work you do, and you start increasing the quantity of money you're getting off of these other jobs, and increasing the money that you charge per contract, you can reach a level where even if you decided that you wanted to do Uber a little bit more full time and a little less contracting full time, you could take the money from one of them, hire a second person, and increase the workload. You can pay that person far less than what you're getting, and then you might be getting $250 a contract, but you pay this other guy $50 a contract to get the work done. You keep $200. You don't have to do any work, and that is how you start scaling up your business. And when you ask, well, how do I quit Uber altogether? Well, depending on the quantity of contracts that you bring in, and depending on how many workers you have doing the work with you, and depending on the percentage that they're getting paid over the actual contract that you're being assigned to, you're turning in the work, but you're paying somebody else to get the work done, and you keep the difference. The more of that you do, the more money you got coming in, and now you're in a position where you're at home making phone calls, checking up on projects, and then turning those projects in to the source, where you're just middlemaning the job getting done. That's to work yourself completely out of Uber, where you're getting paid to work off your computer. I have a video from this time last year where a gentleman from Crestify came onto the show. He actually started doing a dog snack product called Happy Oli, where he's got like pumpkin shards and banana shards that are freeze dried and packaged and then shipped all over the world and sold. In order for him to put that together, he ended up creating a platform that allowed him to do market analysis, not market analysis, market imagery. Because in order for him to make his own labels, he had to make a label printing machine, not a machine, but like a business. So now he's selling that as a second job. Then in order for him to advertise it, he had to create websites and do all the SEO stuff. He's got a business for that. So if you need help with websites and other stuff like that, he'll help you out with that for premium. So he can work on your website, he can work on your labeling, he can work on the packaging, whatever your brand is, and brand it onto whatever your product is, and he sizes it for your product because he had to do it for himself. So now he's essentially got like 2 or 3 businesses here, all because he wanted to make his dog better snacks. All it takes is this is where it started. He's like, the stuff that he gets for his dog got too much preservatives. He wanted to get his dog something more natural, more healthy, extend the life of his dog. My dogs love the snacks, and that led to all of this other stuff. Now, he admits he's got far less free time than what he thought, but he's running like 2 or 3 businesses, and he's doing really good for himself financially as a result. But he's working from home. He was able to spend 3 hours live on a podcast because he had nothing else to do. And between him and Joe Mastrano, the CPA that's been a tax agent all of his life and retired out of that and running his own business where he has tax agents that work for him, he doesn't have to show up for work either. And, he does seminars now for educating people on taxation, just sharing the knowledge that he learned from his experiences. So always being able to take your skill set and turning it into something else is a good thing. It's a doable thing. It's not just a good thing, it's a doable thing. But what you have to do is titrate yourself from the primary thing that you're used to doing and start diluting yourself in an area where you're now doing something else that's a little bit more comfortable for you. Because I can tell you, I used to work in restaurants. As a matter of fact, I was a damn good cook at a Waffle House, night shift manager. But I was there 12 hours a day because I would get there an hour early. You know, the night shift is overnight from 8 o'clock at night to like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd come to work an hour early, stay an hour late. I'm half a day. I'm on this job 6 days a week, almost no time off. I stopped doing that and started doing this stuff. And now I'm at home all the time. I leave from the house once a week, as opposed to leaving the house 6 days a week and only being at the house for 6 hours on my day off, because Waffle House, you're always getting called in on your day off. So it's a change. It's a tough change. You're gonna, if you do a sudden stop auto transition, which is why I did that show about building an early retirement. If you put up 12 months worth of income aside, you can start up another job and still have money. But if you're trying to live from check to check, you start up the business on your free time and build it up. And then when it starts making more money than you need, you work less on the other job and work more on the new job. And until you make 70, 80%, 90% of your income from your first job, then you quit your first job altogether and go all in on the new job because it has stabilized. Because the only thing that stops startups from being successful is the time frame that it takes for you to get paid off of the job and the cost that it takes to make it financially successful. Those are like the two big things. Because if you can't afford to keep investing in it to have it turn a profit, you're not going to keep doing it. And if you need money and you can't wait for a payment, even if you don't have to invest in it, even if all you have to do is put in effort, you quit doing it because it's not paying you the amount of money that you need in order to pay for your standard of living. So then you start chasing the money. You go somewhere else and start focusing on how to get more money out of this scenario, which usually when you're working for somebody else, it is paid for your presence, which means that you're going to get a limited quantity of money for your presence, and you got to show up more to get more money. And that's when you go all in on that job and you find yourself with no free time. So it's kind of a dynamic shift. You have to change from being the worker to being the owner, and you have to start off by building something, and then the routine that you do that turns into a job position, you hire somebody to do that, and then you start focusing on something else, and you keep doing that until you don't need to be there anymore. And then when you can walk away from it, now you're getting paid for it, but you're hanging out in another country, like in the Philippines, getting paid $6,000 a month to do absolutely nothing besides answer the phone.
Right.
How much of that have you been able to look into?
As far as me doing like a remote work, or me like living abroad, like what specifically?
Both.
So I mean, I've looked at, two countries like Philippines and Vietnam. They both look really good. The remote work, I've just, since I've been unemployed for so long in the typical corporate sense, everything that I can find remote is only like, $20 a month or something. It's not, none of it's like
$20 a month for remote work.
I'm sorry, $20 an hour. Okay, yeah, I misspoke there.
Oh no, they got some remote work like that. That's $20 a month because it's paid by contract, and they don't have that many contracts.
Oh man. Well, so I need to make, $20 an hour is okay if I was living in the Philippines, like you said, and your cost of living is $1,000, then you're living like a king, right? But yeah. I have other obligations for at least the next decade that I need to maintain a certain income to be able to pay those obligations in the United States. So
I know that feeling. Sometimes you got those obligations that are stuck with you for 18 years.
Yeah, something like that. So it's, and it's not like you can get out of those legally or without a lot of headache. And it's not something that I want to do either. But I think that, like the gross before, like working for the city, it's like pretty standard. It's like $6,500 a month, and that was almost 4 years ago. So, they've raised the starting salary to like 7,000. So, if I found something even comparable to what I was doing, um, I always work from a laptop, so
Well, you
that's not
would.
the problem.
What you're doing is you're changing your mentality from the paid by the hour to the paid by the job.
Right, as a contractor.
And that is where you're going to make more money, because as you start up, you're going to get, 1 month when they don't know who you are, but they know what you do. But when they start knowing what you do and knowing who you are, not only do you have the benefit of them being a return customer, you also have the benefit of them referring you to some other companies that are in the same market as them. And that gives you the ability to get more contracts. So you are accidentally still looking in the paid by the hour mentality.
Yeah,
Even
of
I can
course.
put my money on it that even as an Uber driver, you gauge yourself as a per hour amount of money off of the quantity of rides that you do.
Yeah.
You put in a certain amount of hours a day, you get a certain amount of money per day. So on average, you make about a certain amount of money per hour. Most of us do that, but you're limiting your potential to getting paid for your time by the hour. You have to look at the workload.
Of course, yeah. If I could just work Friday and Saturday nights, and not do these early morning airport runs, you could make a person could make 800 a week pretty easy for just a few hours. But if you work the morning and you put in a good 40 hours a week, then that gives you the extra 500 or 600 a week. So
you're going to get more money on the weekends and during massive events with Uber, but you deal with the fact that you're dealing with drunks, vomiting in your car, terrible traffic. And then one of the things that you don't get in the daytime as an Uber driver that you do get at the nighttime, where nothing about you has changed, is that more people will complain about your experience so that they can get a free ride.
Yeah.
Which makes it harder for you to maintain your status as an Uber driver, because people will report you for everything under the sun so that they can get a free ride, because they can't afford to pay for the cost of being Uber, because they spend more money than they make. But either way, it's a dynamic. My homeboy got fired from both of them, and I was like,
it's a really it's a really hard it's a hard thing to balance, like the power dynamic, because the customer has a lot of power over you. If you even look at them sideways, of course they could give you a bad rating. I've been fortunate enough to stay at the top tier of the elite status, but at the same time, I had to maintain like the
4.8
highest
or 4.9 status.
Yeah, I've never had a bad rating actually, but
look.
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to tell you, what I had to work very hard at, is I had to be very patient, and I had to swallow my pride a lot and deal with a lot of crap from people. So, do I like that? Did I have to compromise my morals? No, I don't want to be in that position forever, because there are people that treat you like crap. But I also put myself in a position to make like the best bonuses. I get selected the first for the rides. I mean, I'm like elite.
My boy he covered like 3,000 or 3,500 rides, and I was like, Jesus, that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm at like 12 or 13K rides in almost 4 years.
That's a generation worth of working right there. Y'all putting in some miles.
Yeah,
I moonlighted on that for a few just to help him out, because he was working 2 jobs, and I moonlighted for him a couple times.
Yeah, my brand new car in 2021, I put 185,000 miles on it.
Yep, believe it. Car ain't worth shit.
It looks and runs like brand new. Rebuilt the transmission, and that was it.
Oh, of course. But when you think about when you put that car for sale and you say, well, it came out last year, but it's got 150,000 miles on it this year, the value of it is
No,
going way down.
I'm trying to get to 500,000. I'm trying to get into the Subaru club, because if you get to 1,000,000 kilometers, they buy the car from you, and they give you like $20,000 towards a new car if you get your car to.
No.
It's called the
So,
million. It's called the Million Kilometer Club, and I'm at
so
185,000 miles, so I need to get to 500,000 miles.
So it loses its value until you hit 500,000 miles, and then it gains some of its value back because you can sell it to them and get
They
20
give
grand.
you they give you 20 grand towards the new car, and
How
they,
much
they
did that
study.
one cost you? Was it under 20 grand or more than 20 grand?
I paid 24,000 for it, and actually it wasn't
That's
brand
like
new.
85%.
Yeah, I bought it with about 5,000 miles on it, but
Yeah,
it
but
was
that's like
still. I call
85%.
it brand new.
That's a lot of money. I
Yeah,
call
because
no. Okay. First off, a lot of people get their mentality wrong about that. A brand new car is a car that has less than 50,000 miles.
right,
People do not realize that the car is driven off the dealership manufacturing lot. The car is driven for test drive. It's driven onto the shipping containers. It's driven off the
sure,
shipping containers. It's driven onto the truck. It's driven off the truck, and it is rotated around the lot frequently. Then that 3 to 5,000 miles, and then what they do. This is another thing. They turn back the mileage clock when they think they're not going to move the car anymore. So the 3,000 to 5,000 miles that you see on the car when they call it a certified pre-owned vehicle
yeah,
is either mileage that they utilized it as a loaner vehicle when another customer's car was in the shop, or test ride miles where they didn't take the car over 50 miles an hour. They only took it around 3 blocks and brought it back, and they built up 3,000 to 5,000 miles over the course of 2 years on the car. That's a brand new car because again, you got to drive it for 5,000 miles to break it in.
oh,
Nobody knows that. So
oh, yeah.
they have a psychological sense of shame that it doesn't have 0 miles on it. Nobody really wants a car with 0 miles on it because you don't know if it works. And they assume, well, it's new to me because it's got 5,000 miles, but technically it's not new because it's got 5,000 miles. No, if you've got 5,001 miles, you've got officially a broken in car that has no mechanical problems on it. And because you're getting it at 5,000 miles, the dealership is going to give you an extended warranty on it instead of the regular warranty on it, which is better for you because now you can get 5 years, 125,000 miles instead of 3 years, 60,000 miles. And it doesn't have anything wrong with it.
Yeah,
And it's $20,000
yeah.
cheaper in some scenarios. It's the better buy,
I,
especially if you're financing.
yeah. So yeah, and I've got literally March is my payoff date.
Sweet.
So I owe less than $800 on the car. So yeah.
And you're going to buy you another one
No, I'm gonna keep driving. I mean, the car has got all the
after you
technology in it, and it's really big.
cross
And
over your 500,000. Are you going to buy you another one?
oh, I mean, that's just a fantasy. I mean, I'd have to work. I'd have
Five
to
more
work
years.
for. Yeah, I'd have to work 5 more years at least to be able to hit the hours to make those kinds of miles. But right now, I usually change the oil every 2 weeks in the car. So
That's required. Yeah.
yeah, that's. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Two
put
200
miles in the
miles a
car.
day almost. Yeah, yeah. Because to make good money, when you talk about making like 1,500 miles or $1,500 or $1,700 a week, you're typically 8 to 10 hours a day, and you're typically between 100 and 250 miles per day, plus your drive home and your drive to your starting point. Because not always, depending on where your location is your starting point at your house. So you typically, a lot of people, at least when I was talking to my homeboy about it, typically start the meter sometime after you've topped the tank off so that you can drive it
Yeah.
until you need gas, and that's when you get your break.
Well,
You take a break to
I
go to the bathroom or to put gas in the car.
I have a unique position because uh I live close to the airport. So I can start my day at the airport every morning. And you know, four in the, like I said, I work from 4 in the morning to 8 in the morning, uh, basically Sunday through Thursday, and then Fridays and Saturdays, um, I'll work from somewhere around maybe 10 a.m. to 10 at night. So I put in 12 hours on those days. So I'm
You do
putting
half
in right
days
about,
during the week and whole days on the weekend.
yeah, you know, I put in about 44, 45 hours a week, and I work every single day and every morning. But basically every day I have the rest of the day off. I just have to get up and start working by 4 every morning. But it's really lucrative in the morning. And there's other people that'll drive for 10 hours a day,
And
and
get half of
they'll make they'll make they'll make more money than me, but I also work a lot less hours than them, and I make just as much as they do.
that.
So
They're technically making a net pay less money than you. Gross pay, probably more money than you because they're driving further distances, they're burning more gas, they're eating more food, they're putting more hours on the clock to draw back a larger quantity of money. But putting in less hours and you're burning less gas, you're hanging out in your car less often, and
right,
you're making the same amount of money as them. So
right.
effort versus return, you're doing a lot better.
Oh,
And
and then
that's
sure, they're
actually pretty good.
exhausted, and they're exhausted, you know. And I start my day at 8 o'clock, and I can do whatever I want from Sunday to Thursday, and
Yeah, I've
it,
done it. Like I said, I moonlighted, and I was burnt out because I took his car because he was doing it with a rental car at one point in time when he was doing Lyft, and he had to put in so many rides, and he wasn't meeting his
yeah,
quotas. So he was like, "Hey man, I got to work. Can you cover my thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I took off from my job and I started running his job. And in order to meet his mileage count, I had to put in an extra 12 hours. I had worked for 36 hours because I worked my job, and
yeah.
then I did the thing for him, and then I went back to work. Oh man, I owe you. Yes, you do. I'll never let you forget it.
So I know drivers that literally work 10 hours a day for 7 days a week, and they make more money than me. They make like 2,000 a week, but they're dead.
That extra
They're
five
dead.
hundred dollars is not worth it though.
It's not. They're always on energy drinks. They're always eating gas station food. Every single morning I cook for myself, you know, three in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, I get up, you know, have the dog outside, cook, and then I start work at 4, and then I make it home every day by 8 or 9 depending on traffic. And I have the rest of my day, so I don't have to make those decisions like those other drivers do and spending all their time. Uh,
But think about this: they're making less money than you because when you think about the gas station food, you think about the extra gas they're putting in the car because in order for them to sit in the car when it's hot out, they're running the engine, so they're burning more gas. They're making less money than you to be on the job, and then they're
yeah,
putting in extra hours. So while they're making an extra $500, but when you take off that extra $300 worth of gas they got to put into the tank and the extra $150 worth of food that they got to put into their stomachs because the gas station food is not cheap. Odds are they're probably making $50 to $100 a week less than what you're making, but they're doing 20 hours a week more than you. And I actually did, and that's not even considering the maintenance because if they're out there grinding like that, they've got more tire changes, brakes, pads, rotors, oil changes, and all this because they're running their engines and hanging out in a lot of different places in order to try to make it work, and that puts a lot more wear and tear on the vehicle as well as the person. So and I did that calculation with my buddy, and he was doing like $150 hours. And after you finish taking out all of the money he spent for the quantity of time that he was out there, he was still walking out with like $30 an hour. And I was like, oh, it's not worth it because you out there
well,
all day and you're tired.
and let me tell you about another unique opportunity we have. Sometimes, you know, put it in perspective, like where you live. Uh, I'll have somebody that needs to go to Orlando, right?
Right.
And so in
Oh,
the
that
trunk of my,
5 hour drive to Miami is fantastic.
yeah. So if I have somebody that's got to go to Orlando, it's about an hour and a half, right? So for me, I've got everything in my trunk. And if I have to like sleep in a different city, I got a sleeping bag and everything, and I can sleep in the back of the car. So, and I've got food, I've got energy bars, bottles of water. So I'm prepared if there's like a business customer that tells me, hey, I need to get to Orlando right now. I missed my plane flight. I'll take them.
Mm.
And the same thing for me, your equivalent would be like Miami, 3.5 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
Uh, that's our Houston. And I've done that before too. But for that kind of ride, I tell them, hey, I need 300 cash up front because
Yeah.
I have to turn around and drive back without a ride. And I've done that a few times. So driving less hours lets you physically and mentally be ready for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Because they don't come every day, you know.
Well,
I wish I could make
thinking
that
about
much
that,
money.
no man, you'd have to be in an inconvenient scenario every day in order to make
Right.
that kind of money. Because the compromise is they're giving you extra capital because you got to drive all the way back. But you're basically finding gaps, and that's what I was going to be talking about here on the show. Is that in order for you to find a better niche for yourself, is that you've got to find the gap. So while you're looking at those job titles, it doesn't matter how much they're paying per hour for the employee, because you're not trying to be an employee. You're looking at how many companies have that same job title. That is the business that you're trying to build. Then you're subcontracting your effort to that job title. And on a task by task basis, you're going to provide them with the service of fulfilling a certain workload. You're not thinking about you can calculate it on a by the hour pay, but I would do an overflated price, because I mean you're going to be getting all this stuff done, and you're going to want to project it where even if you get an invoice and say like this is a 40-hour workload, knowing that you can get it done in 10,
Okay.
you get a 40-hour workload, you get paid for a 40-hour workload. If they're paying you $20 an hour for 40-hour workload and you only take 10 to 15 hours to get the workload done, you got 40 hours worth of pay. But now you can get 3 contracts that do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I if I could figure out a job that I could get paid for by companies, to make
Start with what you know.
Yeah.
Start with the field that you've already been in. You said you were pricing products and analyzing data related to pricing products. And in that same field, there is a help wanted ad from most companies that are looking for employees that performs that type of task. Based on that, you should be able to create a business that provides that type of service. After you get your business together, because you're going to utilize Uber, take care of your standard of living, and then any little bit of money that you have that you're not going to invest in stocks, bonds, and savings, you take that to pay towards the startup of the thing, and you structuralize a foundational image where you're capable of showing the customer that you can produce the results that they're looking for, and then try to establish a contract with them based on the quantity of workload that they have. You were able to project a certain level of hours needed to work that particular product or work on that particular project, and then you would have the quantity of cost to perform that, because you're not just going to charge them for the hours. You're going to charge them for the hours. You're going to charge them for the materials. If you have to print something out, you're going to be charging them for that too. Printer, ink, all of that stuff. You're going to be including all of that stuff in there. And if you're doing this from an LLC or C corporation scenario, you're probably even going to include things like the cost of taxes included in it, so that you can take the taxes out of your money and send it to the government and it not come out of your money, right? He's like, yeah, setting a price. And then when you do that, uh, you've now filled their gap. You're going to perform at a certain workload. And after you finish conquering that workload, you're able to start promoting for another workload, because you could be doing this workload, like, it might be, like I said, a 40-hour workload where you're probably going to do 48 hours a day on it. They're going to give you a 40-hour workload. They're going to give you 2 weeks to put it out. And since they're going to give you 2 weeks to put it out, you can work on the weekends because you've got 14 days to give it back to them. You could do 4 to 6 hours a day every day and work on it. But while you're not working on that and not doing your Uber thing, you could be looking to close your next contract. By the time you finish your first contract, your next contract is ready. And that's when you start rolling over consistent deals. When you start getting, is it fair enough, but I'm not a CPA? Well, if you work in taxation, so first of all, the taxes that you're charging for the service is the sales tax of the job. Sales tax is going to automatically go to the IRS. Because you are a subcontractor, a 1099 employee, you have to pay your own taxes. If you include the cost of taxes into the fees, you are offsetting your cost for taxes onto the client that you're hiring. So you're not paying the taxes for this job, they are. You keep everything else. After you file the taxes, you can connect with a CPA. And when you connect with a CPA, I actually got information about a CPA up here, and you can get more information about it. When you connect with the CPA, they can verify all of the information that you would need to be successful with your taxation there. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's the webinar information. And that'll help you with getting the deductions where some of that IRS money that you gave to the government can come back to you. You can do it quarterly, sending them the money quarterly, and then file your taxes at the end of the year and get reimbursed on anything that you didn't have to give them. But what I was talking about was if you are working in taxation, because you might have had like a tax kind of job, you could take a series of reasonable tests, get a certification in your state, become a licensed CPA, and still do it on your own and reach out to these individual companies and try to cover the spread on that. He said it does take a lot of planning, but it sounds good. The planning phase is the easiest part about any idea, believe it or not. And the reason why the planning phase is the easiest part is because hypothetically, you can do just about anything in the world that you want to do until you start dealing with the powers beyond your control that prevent you from doing things. So, for example, you can become a licensed CPA unless you don't have the capabilities of passing the licensing exam. You can be a master of many hats until you start taking into consideration your physical health and your motivation to perform. So when you start talking about, I don't want to do what I'm currently doing now for the rest of my life, I want to do something different, the first thing you have to do is consider what different do you want to do, and then how do I make that financially successful. So I'm painting you the blueprint of how to make that financially successful. You're able to put a little bit of money at a time that you're not utilizing for your standard of living and putting that towards building your image. Then you're contracting yourself to the client, and then you're performing the workload. As you perform the workload, you bring in a quantity of revenue. You utilize that revenue, maybe put it into some advertisement, get you some more clients, get you another workload. Still, you have your primary source of income, so you're not short on your standard of living. Because like you said, through the week, Monday through Friday, you're typically only doing like 4 hours or so on your first job. If this was your second job, you would still be doing 4 hours or so a day on your second job, where you're still only working 8 hours a day, but your second job is bringing you a larger income that allows you to do two things: reinvest into the business so that you can hire more people to do the same work with you so that you don't have to do all the work, and advertise to get more customer base in, because you don't need the money off of the second job. You use the money from the second job to expand the second job. Then when the second job becomes a standalone, because you're making more money off of the second job, or the same amount of money off the second job than what you're making off the first job, then you can quit the first job and put all of your attention towards the second job. But by that time, you should have at least two people working with you. And if you have with you, that's because the first person you hired is training the other two people, and you technically have a manager now. And you can step away from doing the work and start doing the marketing and advertising. Or you could step away and hire a marketing advertiser who can bring in more work, and you and the two other people that work with you are completing the tasks. But if you hired a fourth person, again, you have a trainer for the doing of the work, two people doing the work, a marketing advertiser, and then you're closing the contracts. Now your only job out of this 5-person crew is closing the contracts and then paying the workers to get the work done. Where that's a job in and of itself, you hire a 6th person to do that, and now all you're doing is payroll. You can hire there's a third-party company, I can't remember the name off of it. I think it's paychecks.com, if I remember correctly. It is a third-party company that handles your payroll. You can hire them on, and they can do payroll for you, where the most you have to do is input work hours, or have people log in to clock in and produce the work. And now really you're just checking in to make sure that the work is done, make sure that the money came in. A lot of stuff is doing direct deposits, wire transfers. So now you're just watching the money, watching the workload, watching the contracts come in, watching the deals get closed, and really hanging out doing nothing. Now, yes, on paper, to get the business off of the ground. Oh, it's coming. It's going to catch up. I was saying, on paper, it might take 2 to 3 months to get it off the ground. It might take 6 to 9 months to make it self-sustainable, or enough for you to hire a second or third person to help you with it. If you was to start looking into it right now, depending on how much effort you put into it and how much success you have from it, by this time next year, you might at least have some part-time work doing your second job in addition to your first job. And the profits that you get from your second job, since your first job pays for your standard of living, your second job reinvests 100% back into the business, which allows you to hire a second worker or a third worker and all the other stuff that I'm talking about. So by the year 2, it is running itself. And by year 3, you have quit your first job. And that is he said, talking about the moon, it got stuck tonight. Go outside and see it for yourself. I will. I got to take the dog out for a walk right after the show today. But yeah, that is what he said. I just looked it up with AI, and it makes sense now. What makes sense about the moon? What makes sense about the moon? Because I know we were talking about the moon before. Why is the moon stuck in a fixed location in the sky overnight? Typically, if you stand outside long enough, you can watch the moon cross the sky similarly, but not in the same orbit as the sun crosses the sky. Because like, if your house faces north, you'll see it go over the house in one direction, but you see the sun go over the house in the opposite direction, depending on where you stay. I see if you can look up at usually crosses the sky, but not tonight. The moon takes a lot of time to cross the sky. but it doesn't. So it starts crossing the sky at around 6, 7 o'clock in the evening time, but it is a snail's pace, and it does not make it to the opposite side. So it's like 12 hours to get across the sky. What you see usually, and closer to this time of year, the moon is closer to the Earth allegedly, and then you're able to see it a lot more visibly. First thing in the morning, right at sunrise, and the last thing in the afternoon, right at sunset or a little after sunset. Um, but you said why? So you want me to see why is the moon stuck today? He said they're lining up. Oh, okay. I watched it rise in the northeast and set in the southwest, but not today. Okay, so it's not going anywhere. Well, hold on, we froze for a minute. Uh, the information that I have is that it looks stuck because it always shows the same face to Earth, and it's a situation called tidal locking. The moon is not actually stationary. Allegedly, it orbits the Earth about once every month and also spins once on its axis in the same time. And because the spin period and the orbital period match, the same hemisphere always faces Earth. So from where we're at, it appears as if the moon is just hanging there with one side showing. How tidal locking occurs. Early in its history, the moon rotated faster, but Earth's gravitational pull is slightly harder now on the nearer side than the far side, stretching the moon into the sub a subtle football shape uh, observation. And as the moon turned, that bulge was dragged out of alignment, creating internal friction that converted rotational energy into heat and gradually slowed the moon's spin until one rotation matched one orbit. Uh, Allegedly, the moon is still moving. It orbits Earth and is slowly drifting away at a rate of a few centimeters per year due to ongoing tidal interactions with Earth's oceans. So, over immense time scales, these same interactions are also very gradually showing slowing down Earth's rotation, and far in the future, probably outside of our lifetime itself, could become uh, tidally locked so that only one side of Earth would ever see the moon. And that's actually a pretty weird observation.
Huh.
So, I mean, yeah, I haven't gone out to see the moon today, but I will be going out in a little while
See,
because we're going to be.
we were just talking about, you know, the moon people and how it's probably a spaceship.
Right.
And now, out of nowhere, I go out and observe the moon, and I've never seen the moon in my entire uh all my years of my life stay in the same spot and not. I mean, from this has been 4 or 5 hours now that
Hmm.
the moon the moon came out and it just didn't move. I've never
Didn't go
noticed this
anywhere.
before. Yeah.
Yes, they're calling that tidal lock.
Hmm.
It is moving slower, so it is the equivalent of two objects spinning at the same rate of speed. Um, and I want to say they are opposing orbits where it looks like they are facing each other and rotating without actually changing their position with one another. And as
Right.
a result, during that period of time, it's because the Earth is spinning in one direction and the
Right.
moon is spinning in another direction as the moon moves around the Earth. And that idea is that while the Earth is spinning, the moon is facing the earth and wrapping around the moon, and that looks like it is not going anywhere over that probably 6 to 8 hour span, which is actually a pretty impressive thing to observe. Because yeah, when I think about it, younger years, by 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, the moon would be on the other side of the sky, and it's still on the same side of the sky that it was.
What's going on? What's going on?
I seen that because I seen a quarter moon, a crescent moon.
But this is what I'm talking about. This is how this is how I'm thinking it's a alien race that's more sophisticated to us, because now they have me bugged in my house, and now that they heard me on the podcast, they went and threw that information on the internet, because it's never happened.
You said go look it up. Yeah,
this podcast
is this podcast is a wiretap, so you already know because it's broadcasting all over the world right now. If you just broke the matrix, they told somebody. So before I finish looking it up, they've got an answer to the question.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, but that is one of the things to look into. I myself am actually I'm very intrigued by astrology, but I don't put a lot of effort into it. But I also recognize that what I see has already happened so long ago that by the time I registered it, it's too late. So
yeah,
because of the quantity of miles away it takes for an image to move at the speed of light, in order for me to see it, I'm actually looking up at the past. That's not its present location or its present.
Or we're looking at the future, right?
Technically, yes. Ideally, we're looking into the future. Well, it already happened, and now I'm finding out about it. So I'm looking at what the future should look like from the past is probably the best way to explain it.
So how do we look up into the sky to see what the lotto numbers will be in 2 days' time? That's what I want to know.
Well, now that's an interesting question to have. When you think about what's happening in our current moment-to-moment time,
right?
And then but then we think about looking into space and getting that information. The information that we have right now would have to travel at the speed of light or beyond the speed of light, away from space, and then come back to us. And the time it would take, the numbers would have passed. Now, if the lottery numbers were coming from somewhere else, we could intercept that signal and get it before the numbers are read. But because of the sound frequency.
Okay, so you know how like when you're standing still on the side of the road and a car drives past you at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, you cannot see the car, right? All you see is a blur because your eyes cannot register what the car would look like still.
But you get that gust of wind when it passes by.
Well, sure, but the car did not change its image. The car is still the same shape, but it's traveling at such a high rate of speed, our eyes cannot register and see it clearly because it's moving, it's a blur. So is there a way to move so fast that we could see what the lotto numbers are and be back in our timeline before somebody even blinked? But why not? Because the car can move that fast.
What you would have to do is you would have to be in the future or in the present time where today's lotto numbers were revealed, and then you would have to travel back in time to before the lotto numbers were played and play those numbers. And reason being is because you would have to be in a future where the lotto numbers hit, but nobody won the jackpot. Because otherwise you'd have to share the jackpot with everybody else.
Okay, so if you're standing in one spot and you're walking down the road and it takes you 30 minutes to get to the end of the road and it's 1 mile away, but it takes the car 1 second to get a mile down the road, and you're still in the same timeline, is it time travel or?
That would be theoretically a form of time travel, yes, because the car will be traveling faster than you to get to the destination you're trying to get to, and that
'Cause
car
you'd
would
show
be
up.
capable of coming back before you
Right.
get there with the
Exactly.
results of what's there, but that still requires a time machine.
So is the time machine a physical device, or is the time machine just figuring out how to travel faster than the speed of light so that by the time everybody else saw the event at 10 p.m. at night, you'd already be back with the results? You know what I
Okay,
mean?
so there are multiple ideas of time travel. There is a time travel idea where time essentially stops because you have possessed a device that allows you to move faster than the speed of light. And if you're moving faster than the speed of light, everything would essentially be moving still for all the things that are moving slower than the speed of light. Then you have the ideology of time travel where you are in a device that separates you from the timeline and replaces you back in the timeline at a different time. That is a time machine. So the difference between time travel, where you yourself can travel faster than the speed of light, whether you're going forward in time or backwards in time, like the Flash or Superman running so fast that they turn back the clock kind of situation, versus the ideology of like Doctor Who, where you get into a ship
Oh,
that
right.
takes you back into the past. And the difference is that because you're saying, look with natural human eyes into the future
Hmm.
and then take action on the future in the past. The difference between looking at the moon or looking at a star in a different solar system that exploded and that image took a million light years to get to us, we are looking at the future of a different planet's past because that planet has already blown up and that flash of light just got to us.
Right.
But we're not looking at our timeline. We're looking at that planet's timeline, third party looking in. Your question is, from inside of the same timeline, can I skip time without leaving my current time destination? And the only way you can do that is if you go forward in time to when the event occurred and then go back in time before action needed to be taken, and preferably before you went forward in time.
Hmm.
And that theory is going to have you start changing timelines because every theoretical time travel paradox has multiple different timelines based on multiple different decisions that were made either for or against an outcome. And if you're on a linear track of one timeline where you didn't win the lottery and you got the lottery numbers and you went back into the past before you played the numbers, you would now be on the path of a different timeline where you actually played the winning numbers and won. And the outcome that you live is a different timeline than the outcome that you live when you didn't play the lotto versus the outcome that you live when you did play the lotto and lost. So you have three outcomes. You have the never playing the lotto and still having a lot of money in your pocket, playing the lotto, having less money in your pocket, playing the lotto and winning and having more money in your pocket. And then you start thinking about the other possibilities of playing the lotto, winning and getting robbed, playing the lotto, winning, losing the ticket, all of these different variables that could have happened, playing and winning the lotto, wasting all your money, playing, winning the lotto and investing all of the money, all of these different outcomes. So how do you actually make it and come back? Well, that's what a time machine requires because you would have to go forward in time to when the lottery numbers were produced. I mean, unless you hack the lotto system, that's the other way to do it without time travel. But if you go to the forward in time to when the lottery numbers were produced, then you go back in time before the lotto numbers were played, you play the winning numbers and then live that timeline. But that would require a time machine because it would take you out of your current timeline and place you into a different timeline. But there isn't a scientific possibility that I'm aware of where you can simply, the same way you're looking at me on this podcast, look into a device, see the future from the present, and then take action on that future right now. Because I mean, if we had missiles coming this way from Russia, I mean, the most we would be able to do is hide underneath the table or something. We wouldn't be able to go to the nearest ammunitions and go pick up a bunch of artillery and shoot the missile out of the sky. We don't even have money set aside to buy a rocket launcher. See what I'm saying? So we can't, even though we see the future coming, because this missile would be destroying us if it hits, we would not be able to act on the future outcome because we are not prepared for that. So how would we get prepared for that? We would have to go back in past with the knowledge of the future outcome and start preparing ourselves for that outcome. And that requires a time machine as opposed to time traveling. Because if you take yourself out of the timeline where you no longer impact the timeline, then whatever device that you use to do that allows you to go anywhere in the future or the past and see it as a third-party observer, the way we're watching constellations. But when you start talking about impacting a timeline, you need a machine that detaches you from the timeline and then puts you back into the timeline in a different location so that you can make different decisions. Now, the other question would be, in that theoretical scenario, and you can chime in on this part, would you be able to see yourself in that timeline when you went back into the past, or would you be replacing yourself when you went back into the past? Because theoretical paradoxes indicate that if you travel back in time, you exist in that time and you as you in the past, and you exist in that same timeline as you in the future. What do you think about that? Then maybe I feel like I wouldn't see me. Well, you definitely try to hide from yourself. I don't know if it's the doppelganger method, where if you were to see yourself in the past, if you would just like die or like merge together or something like that. But you know, if you're detached from your timeline, like some of those time travel movies where you can see yourself but you don't want to impact your own decisions, you could find yourself in a position where you're able to influence your past decisions, but you're technically not supposed to.
Right? I'm having to charge my headphones like on the fast regular charger basis for like 10 minutes at a time just to be able to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're almost done with today's show. Yeah. I entertain your science discussion.
No, I think it's interesting though, because I'm not super obsessed in the time machine, but you know, in a basic physics standpoint, the universe is so big, and we're looking up, you know, just the moon, and you know, we don't know even enough about the moon, right? Because I think we went to the moon 50 years ago.
Right.
And so we don't even know enough about physics in general to even worry about a time machine. But you're right about how things are so far away that they've already happened because of the speed of light. It would just be interesting to know if there's ways to predict things that we can protect ourselves. I mean, obviously not when you see a rocket
as
coming
far
from
as
Russia.
Obtaining knowledge. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Our future is moving at the same speed as our present. Well, slightly slower because we're catching up with our future. However, in order for us to see our future before our future impacts us, we would need an external device, because we naturally cannot go to the future. We do not have natural telepathic or psychokinetic capabilities to see what's happening in the future. And as a result, we would need a non-natural, non-biological device that might have some type of biological cybernetic capabilities to connect to us, to take us to the future that we're looking for and see the outcome that we want to change, and then go back to the past. Or if we've already experienced the outcome, but we want to prevent ourselves from experiencing that outcome, we would then go back into the past and change the decisions that were made to change the outcome. But the
Okay.
dynamic of your question has two variables that are very interesting. And both of them come from you existing in the future and the past in the exact same location.
Right.
If you detach yourself from the future, go back to the past with future knowledge to change your past self's decisions so that you don't experience it, do you disappear?
Well,
Because
what?
what I was about to say is that you who experienced the outcome no longer would ideally exist if you never made the decisions to be the you that you are when you experience the outcome, because you don't experience the outcome anymore. And then where do you fit in the timeline if that outcome never happened? See what I'm
Okay,
saying?
so according to Star Trek, when
Right.
when they teleport somebody, they're still in the current moment, right? So they're whatever this time is right now, 1:52 for you. So still at two, they're gonna beam, me from Austin to Tampa, and it's gonna happen in the time frame of like 1 second. But the way they explain it on Star Trek is
It's
that
a transporter, not a time traveling device.
right. So they demolecularize your
Yeah.
atoms, and they
Yep.
like reintegrate them at the destination point.
Right. But you're still moving
So
forward in time at the same rate of speed.
of course, so that's like one part of the time travel, because the other part of the time travel is 5 minutes ago we were like in a different position, like say in our house.
Right.
So if you go back 5 minutes in time and you pop up into your house, there's a chance you're going to see your past self,
Right.
or you're actually going to rematerialize, like connected to your past self somehow. I mean, it's really
Well,
hard to imagine.
the dynamic of Star Trek is that you are transporting to a location by dematerializing and then rematerializing.
Right.
That movement, seemingly at the speed of light, is what you're performing, but you're still moving forward in time. So you're not seeing the future or experiencing the future. You're seeing the present. It's almost like the difference between walking and a race car with a jet engine. You're going to get there faster, but it is still in the same timeline. So instead of traveling 100 meters per second, you're traveling at 1,000,000 miles per second. So you're going to get there sooner, but it is still almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So the time doesn't change. Now, when you start talking about observing future events, that's when you start talking about time travel. And there's a difference between the Star Trek's transporter idea versus Doctor Who's transporter idea, because Doctor Who's transporter can go back into the past and see how Hitler behaved. The Enterprise cannot go back into the past and see caveman civilization. They can see what the society is right now. They can beam down where the ship is in space, not be impacted by the solar system, touch down on the ground, and be able to see and experience what's going on right now. But they cannot go back to the ship and with knowledge of what happened on the ground and then beam back down to the ground before it happened and change the outcome. It's still an in the moment scenario. So it's a transporter, not a time machine. Because I know like the difference between like a teleporter that can kind of like instantaneously move you to a different location, like a rip in a wormhole. But it's not the same as going to see your future and then coming to your past, Because if you acknowledge that as we're having this conversation, we exist. And in this conversation, if we were to go back into the past 2 hours and 19 minutes when this podcast started, somebody would be sitting in this chair having a conversation. And the person who went back into the past is not that person. And if a different decision was made, like stop the podcast 30 minutes ago, instead of carrying the conversation to actually transporting back into the past, the person who went back into the past, that person's past no longer exists because the timeline has changed. Now, if I can go back to my future, I would be going to a different future and a different timeline. But as I am still in the past, I am still living from the original timeline as me going back into the past to change the future for the other me. But I never experienced the other timeline. It's just my past self is now on a different path than I am. That's the dynamic.
Oh man, I'm even more confused.
It is confusing. The thing is that if like, for example, they have the theory that if you die in the past, your future self disappears because you never existed. But there's also a dynamic that if you no longer exist in the timeline, your future self, whatever happens to your future self, does not impact your current self. So once you step out of the timeline, for example, your question about going to see the future lottery ticket, you step out of the timeline, go back into the past, and slide yourself the knowledge, whether you change the lottery tickets or give yourself a clue, write it down, something like that, to go and get those winning lottery numbers.
Right.
The past you who hasn't made the decision on buying a lottery ticket could benefit from that decision. And that you will be successful. The current you who tipped yourself off, you still live what life you live because you no longer are a part of a timeline. That's the question. But technically, if you went back, you'll be going back to the original timeline where you didn't win anything. But if you're going to go to the future of the new timeline, you from the alternate timeline are now in the same timeline with the you that won the lottery ticket. And the two yous would either interact with one another, like merging together or something like that, in one of those quantum physics style scenarios, or one of you would have the other one in order to exist, because the two of you would not be able to, like a doppelganger, exist in the same timeline. And benefit, because for example, if an exact identical entity of you was to walk up right now and take all of your assets, you'd be pissed off. You'd want to do something to that person. But that's you, but that's not you at the same time. So you wouldn't be able to exist in the same timeline as two different people of the same person sharing the same wealth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Somebody's gonna
yeah, somebody's gonna want to. It's not like the fabric of time is gonna have to merge you guys together. One of you is gonna kill the other one, because if you're a millionaire, you're not gonna want to share your millions with the other you.
Right.
You know, so if you made that though, that you would continuously go back into the past and try to build your own wealth up, one you is going to be wealthy and greedy because you don't have to put any effort into getting paid, and the other you is going to be resentful because you put in all the work, and y'all are going to have a power struggle, and whichever one wins is going to live the rest of that lifestyle. But the other one, their life ends. As long as the original you from before the decision was made still lives, once the time paradox splits into either the positive or negative decision, once that splits, the you that went back in the past doesn't have a future. Doesn't have a future to go back to.
Yeah, so there's not two timelines.
No, because the decision never made. The decision was never made to not win the lottery. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that is one of those theories, and I can't think of the theory, but it is a paradoxal multiple linear timelines functioning at the exact same time theory, where if you change timelines, your timeline ceases to exist. Your original timeline ceases to exist.
Right. So you can't go
So
back
you
to
would
it.
no, you couldn't. You can go forward in the other decisions timeline, but you couldn't go back to the original timeline because you stopped existing in that timeline. So you stop impacting that timeline. So that timeline doesn't exist anymore. It ended once you left it. And that's probably the only, like, for example, take Terminator and the Sarah Jane Chronicles.
Right.
When he started sending himself robots back into the past to
Oh yeah.
essentially stop himself from creating the software that created the machines that took over the planet.
Right.
Then he sent himself protection to keep himself from being off. And now you've got the future him fighting the other future him in the past, where he's running for his own life. And the three different timelines are conflictual with one another, off of the same bad decision of creating an algorithm that allows machines to take over the world. Tesla and Digitech.
Tesla, you
Yeah,
mean?
that's what I said. Tesla and Digitech.
Who's Digitech?
Yeah, company that's running the AI systems for Amazon, owned by Jeff Bezos. And then you have Boston Dynamic.
I've heard of
Three different
Boston.
tech, three different tech companies that, if they integrate it together, plus there's like 3 or 4 others that are doing not just the artificial humanoid robots. You also have the like Soul Machine with the hologram artificial intelligence inside of the computer as a software. Uh, the fact is that I know that they had some AI generated images on like TikTok and other places like that. But when you have, I see unnamed. How you doing, unnamed? They have soft technology that comes up like that, where you end up in a position where um, um, when we start saying, well, let's put the machines in there to make the decisions because humans act on emotions and we want more logistics, uh, that issue puts us in a dynamic where then there's no flexibility under the law. There's no mercy from a human emotion to allow us to make mistakes and not get in trouble for them. And that's when we end up in a position where zero tolerance is enforced. And when you think about the millions of ridiculous laws that exist, we would
Right.
not know how to impact that. Real quick, let me
That's
see. Unnamed, but let me see. Make sure that
that's a
you're a grown
picture.
man, because
That's a picture.
Dylan, I've already seen him on the show live before. But before I bring you on, unnamed, I want to make sure that you are over the age of 18, because I get some trolls through here. Go ahead, Dylan.
That's a picture that I put up.
Oh,
You just have to accept it.
oh, I thought it was somebody else that was diving in. I was like,
No. You just have to see. Okay, so now you can see this whole. This is the idea of what's underneath the moon.
oh, that's interesting. Who took that
Yeah.
picture though? Like what entity took that picture?
No, this is an artist, a science fiction writer that he created this with AI. But
Yeah, but that's not the point though. Was that taken by a like space astronaut on the moon, or was that taken by like a rover satellite passing the moon? What was the ideology of this particular perspective?
well, the perspective is that this person has already been to the spaceship planet that's in the moon, and this is just like an eyewitness account, and this is drawn out of what they remember
So
life
you would
being
have
like.
to be like walking across the moon's surface and stumble across this giant ball that is unexplainably there. Looks like it crashed.
Right, so
That's
there
pretty impressive.
it's yeah, it's several ideas, like maybe we can't because I know there's the whole dark side of the moon that, like you were saying, we don't actually see one side of the moon because only one side faces us the whole time. So
Right.
there's the dark side of the moon, and the dark side of the moon still gets sunlight. We
Yep.
just
We just don't see it.
we just don't see it. So it's just as bright as the side that we see, right?
Right.
And so there could be a lot of stuff over there that we don't know about, right? And
Right.
whoever is up there knows that we can't see it yet because they monitor us with their, the technology and where we're at in the evolution, and they can easily hide. But I mean, it's not, if the moon is, I don't know, is it 1/5 the scale, 1/20th the scale of the Earth? It's not inconceivable that over several hundred years, several thousands of years, they built a spaceship that was this big. And, just like the hydroponic container growers that you're talking about, they've perfected how to grow plants, how to make oxygen, how to have animals. So it's like a unlimited supply of resources.
That's like a dome um, on the surface, ecosystem
Right.
encased in that dome. I don't know about whether or not it's a spaceship or because if they built it and built a ecosystem inside of it, then it's likely that that could exist and it could be the kind of thing that would allow them to essentially, well, they don't technically have to hide from us because I mean we don't go to the dark side of the moon. But ideally, the temperatures are expected to be so cold that we wouldn't be able to survive it. Uh, but we don't really know that for sure because most of us treat it like faith and we go off of what we're told by media, and we don't necessarily have a lot of sources that tells us all of the truth about all of the things that we need to know. So the dynamic that we have with that is that we're going to be still trusting what we hear from other sources. Now, what I'm looking at with this particular object is that if there was a population, when we think about our ancestors, um, uh, the same way through evolution we change from gorillas from certain theories, um, we would not be able to go to a camp or whatever type of habitat that a gorilla would be in its natural habitat and just bump into them and start trying to have a conversation with them. They're territorial. They would knock us off. Right now, my
Right.
mindset based off of what we were discussing last time was that if anyone came over, and usually when humans know that something else is there, they bring weapons. They don't bring peace. So you show up, and if they've been monitoring us, they know what weapons look like. And if we show up with weapons, they're going to get defensive. If they've
Yeah.
been monitoring us, they know what an attack looks like. And if we get close enough to this particular image, they would get defensive. And then we would have reports, even if they covered it up, that some people aren't returning from the space travel. At least a report that people aren't returning from the space travel, even if they don't report why they're not returning from the space travel. And I believe that that in and of itself would be the proof of observation that there is something there that we actually found and encountered. Now, I'm not saying that nothing's there. I'm not saying that something is there because I don't know. I haven't been there. I'd like to go. But what I am saying is that if we had the capabilities to scour the entire planet and something is there, I believe that that would be a confrontation. I don't believe that
Yeah.
it would be like an ET phone home. Let's touch fingers together. Let's take selfies together. I don't believe that it'll be like that. I
I,
believe
I,
that one species is going to run in fear and the other species is going to try to kill it, the first
well, I think that if that's true though, currently we don't pose a threat. The only thing that we can do is just blow up the surface of the earth, right? And so after they blow up the surface of the earth through nuclear bombs, it'll take whatever hundreds or thousands of years for all the vegetation to grow back, and it'll be like humans weren't even here. So,
but the idea that, okay, so using our equipment against us to blow up the earth to eradicate the human race would be a Armageddon style decision that would be made based off of the recognition that they were found and negatively encountered. Okay. Now, the ideology is that if they are capable of outdoing us with technology, they're not going to be afraid and hide from us because they're capable of doing way more than what we're capable of doing.
So I think what's more possible is that it's not like there couldn't, in theory, be somebody living on the moon in a spaceship. What I think is in another galaxy next to us or another solar system in our galaxy, there could be other alien races that were not genetically the same.
Similar.
Right. And those could be the actual threat. And I agree with you. If they found us, they would want to wipe us out, right?
Right.
Well, if there's an event that had already happened and our ancestors escaped to the moon as an idea, because it's a very unique moon that doesn't exist throughout the entire. So
well, let's take it under the observation of how the dinosaurs were eradicated.
Right.
And then hypothetically, the species that fled the Earth right before the planet got destroyed.
Right.
And all of the technology they took with them.
Right.
Hypothetically, under this synopsis, they would kind of be the evolved form of dinosaurs. Now, us, not nearly as capable as they are, start going to the moon. I still don't believe they would hide from us. Until we stumble across them, I believe that they would have been skilled enough to position themselves in a place where they couldn't be found, because we're not physically capable of going there. Because we're going to explore the surfaces of the earth that has sun. We're not going to go explore the surfaces of the earth that doesn't experience sun. And while the earth rotates and the moon rotates, and the sun is going to engulf the whole moon just differently than what it does the earth. The thing is that the part of the moon that we're able to traverse on is not a few 100 million miles of planet. It's the equivalent of going from California to Florida or from Maine to Texas. We're not going to go that far,
Okay, so if we landed on the moon 50 years ago, is the first time that we're documented landed 50, 60 years ago.
Then, we didn't go 30 miles on the planet, so we would not have been able to see everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a small scale. It's just like going around in the same city that you're in and not seeing the rest of the United States.
Right. But I'm saying, like, now, if we were going to the planet now, it would be equivalent to like traveling the United States. And if they were on the opposite side of the planet,
yeah,
like Asia, 15-hour flight away, we would never encounter them, because from our spaceship, we would drive the distance of 2-3 days and then drive back to the ship and then fly back off. How often have you taken a 3-day drive and been capable of ending up in Africa or Russia from the United States?
Never.
It's not possible. So if there is something there, we would never encounter it with our current technology. But if we had the vast technology or limited resources to scour the whole planet, if there's something there, we would encounter it. And I believe that once we've gotten that advanced, they would not run and hide. They would not have to cloak and shield themselves, that they would literally put up a defensive front and eliminate whatever comes towards their habitat.
Yeah.
My observation. Well, I don't believe they would come in peace, because again, if there is another genetic species in our galaxy on a different planet that would eradicate our species, and this species on the planet is allegedly supposed to be our protector, they are a military force on a galactic level.
Okay.
Which means that they would attack what is determined as a threat.
Okay, so not the gorillas, because the gorillas are not closely related enough to humans, but the chimpanzees, the bonobo or whatever they're called, I watched a documentary on them. They're like 99.7%. They're like only a few percent off of an exact DNA match for
Right, but if like a 20 or 30 of them walked up on your backyard with assault rifles, you're defending yourself.
No, I do agree with that. But what I'm trying to say is, so now the humans run the earth, right? Because our percentage of our brains are bigger and we can manufacture and create tools and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So what if our ancestors are humans to us and we're chimpanzees to them, and
Right.
we have not evolved enough and we have like telekinetic capabilities, like where we're just, 10% smarter, but that puts us way ahead of where we're at now. And
But that puts them in a position with telekinetic abilities to read my mind, and I'm thinking I am going to kill this thing because I'm afraid.
yeah, but let's
And
just say like they've been studying us forever, like we've been studying chimpanzees, right?
right.
And they already know that our capabilities are not like theirs, and they know that they're, let's just say they have technology that could just like move them around in time and space in like a blink of an eye. So there's not even a competition. Like a gun won't even do anything because they could just turn the gun into a chocolate bar, right?
Okay.
So if they're that advanced, I don't think that we actually pose a threat. Now, if it's a different alien species that we're not similar with enough, then yeah, they're going to try to wipe us out. So, I mean,
I would assume, based on this concept, the same premise that I just came off of, and one of the reasons being, take the monkeys for example.
right.
The monkeys at the zoo, for example. If those monkeys got together and left their habitat,
Right.
we would use tranquilizers and other such equipment
Yeah,
to detain them and return them
of
back to
course.
their habitat.
Absolutely.
Now,
Because it's not safe. Yeah.
even though, okay, now, even though we would not inherently try to kill them, we
Of
would
course.
still put up a defensive front of their escaping from what we believed was their safe habitat.
So what if the
Now,
earth is our safe habitat?
and that's what I'm getting at. If they found us out of our safe habitat, they would still put up a defensive front to detain us and return us back to our safe habitat if we did not put up too much resistance. Because just like animals at the zoo that put up enough of a resistance after they've escaped their habitat, they are put down.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to cause unnecessary harm to the zookeepers just to keep the animal alive. If they can't control the animal, they kill it. Same dynamic with your theory is that if we go and stumble across a Vulcan spaceship on the middle of the moon and they think logically and we think illogically and we start posing a threat with our reactions, their response is going to be, if we can't remove them, we eliminate them.
And that's fair. I mean,
But
I,
that's my dynamic. I still don't believe that no matter how advanced that they would be, that they would just avoid us on their territory. Now, if they came to our territory, the same way we go to the aquarium and we just look at the fish, we might tap on a glass a little bit, but we don't really go in there and start messing with them.
right.
The same way we swim with the sharks in a cage, we just sit in the water and watch them. We don't really, the way you ride in the truck on a safari and you watch the giraffe eat from a tree, we don't go over there and kick the giraffe in the shin. You know, uh, I believe that they would avoid negatively interacting with us in our natural habitat, but when we are on their turf, oh, that's a whole different story. And
Right.
that's where my dynamic came from before, is that no, whatever's on the moon, once we get to it, it's going to be all hell on earth, because we are not the species that allows ourselves to be conquered by something else. So if we lost a few good men and women on the dark side of the moon,
Right.
Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and a few other billionaires would be having a military attack force that would start becoming the next generation of Federation, and we would start flying to the moon with
Right.
warships and soldiers and drone technology to attack whatever it was that attacked us, under the fear that whatever it is could come here and take over the rest of the planet. And that
Sure.
response would lead to a planetary war. Because we're
But what
not the
if
type of people to say, "Oops, we lost a few good
no?
men. Let's try to make
Of
peace."
course, and that's how primitive and
We
ignorant
are.
we are as a species, is that we can't make contact with another unknown group without having to react hostile, because we automatically think about the way that we react. We just eliminate the threat first, you know?
We identify them as a threat unnecessarily, and then we come to the conclusion, eliminate the threat. We do
It's
not
better
take the chance. Yeah, better safe than
exactly.
sorry. We don't take the chance of
Yeah.
what if they're not a threat. And as a
But that
result, in
it's
fear, first contact, if anybody on first contact has a weapon, it doesn't matter if it's a shiv, it could be a fractured body, a bottle glass, whatever. It could be a pipe, a stick, a tree, a rock. If they can use it as a weapon to kill what they're afraid of,
uh-huh.
and then that species kills the killer, and then we find out that one of our people got killed by something on the planet, we're going to
Hmm.
send a bunch of stuff over there to go kill it. We're going to defend against it, and then we're going to have a back and forth action.
But do you think it could be avoided if we knew how to communicate, right?
If
So
they
like,
had the communication capabilities to get into our heads and provide us with the type of interaction where we could analyze and
understand,
interpret
yeah.
that thought process, that instead of just making our heads hurt and potentially explode, then just like the telekinesis that we look at on Star Trek, not Star Trek, X-Men, when Dr. Xavier is
Oh
giving
yeah,
people information through their thoughts, then that person, that entity could tell us that they're not a threat, they're not going to hurt us. Sit down,
exactly.
let's talk about this, and potentially work out a level of communication with one another. However, um, mind control is going to be what our species is going to call that, and then the response is going to be kill the hostage and the people they came with, because
Right.
if they can get into his mind, he can get into our minds. And again, the problem
But
with being able to share trains of thought, our thought process unfiltered is not healthy, and as a result,
right.
they're going to feel threatened by the thoughts that we're thinking about, even if those thoughts are in fear, that we're not going to take action upon that. The fact is, I need to find something and kill this thing,
Right.
is a thought process that a lot of people are going to have this species assume. Shoot, there's like 1.548 billion people here that are thinking about killing us right
Yeah.
now. And what do we do about that? What if you knew that there were 300 people outside of your house right now that had the same thought to take you out? Either evacuate your house or defend it at all costs is going to be the two
Right.
responses you're going to have. Not, oh no, come on in, kill me. No, it's not going to be the
So
response.
that's why I think that like we're basically the chimpanzees, and possibly our ancestors are higher level beings that have a higher level of either consciousness or thinking, because uh, there's plenty of things that we see and we don't understand, but
Right.
it doesn't mean we can't eventually figure it out, because we figured out
Oh,
how to fly, we
we've
figured
only
out
got
how to
what
use
10% of our brain being utilized at any given time.
oh
The other
exactly
90% is
like
idle.
in the movie Lucy they talked about that
Yeah,
with
that was a good movie.
that one girl, and she like evolved where she could like see code in the air, and she turned
Yep,
into a
she
giant
evolved into
computer.
matter.
Yeah, so it's wild, but that's I'm thinking that, figuring out how to communicate would be the number one priority, because I mean that's if you go to Asia, right, that's my main concern. How do I interact with the people if I can't speak the language? You know what I mean? So you have to try to learn the language, or
Translation software.
Exactly. You adapt to figure out how to communicate. So I don't know. It's an idea.
But that again is a dynamic of when you go to them. But if they came to you and they're at your house, they stumble across you at your house, and then they pick up a lamp or something like that and try to hit you in the head with it because they wasn't expecting you to be there. And they're afraid of what you might do, and they're responding inappropriately because that's what humans are going to do. Humans are going to preemptively react defensively against a preemptive observation that they might get attacked before they get attacked,
but
that's causes them to attack first.
That's all that we know as humans. You know what I mean? We have not evolved.
And that's the problem that I have with the hypothesis, is that as humans, we would attack first to what would otherwise be a non-hostile scenario. And that initial attack would lead the new species to be afraid for their safety and then retaliate. And if they have advanced technology on us, while our attack on them wouldn't hurt them, their attack on us would hurt us. And that would put us in a position of having more fear. We're going to go tell our local government, and then they're going to send all the warships over. If 5 chimpanzees was in your house flinging poop at you, I mean, you would just leave your house, but you would call animal control. Animal control would come with guns. Animal control would try to detain them. But if that doesn't work, then the police would come and shoot the animals. Because why? The primitive species is get them out of our habitat. And that is going to be the interaction that we would have as a primitive violent species versus a more evolved species, whether they're violent or not. That is going to be the response. As soon as we attack it, that's it for us over there. Now, how we respond once we find out that our people got killed off by another species, that is whether or not we can be diplomatic about it, or if we're going to retaliate violence.
Sure.
But if they're more advanced than us and we don't know how advanced they are, if we retaliate by sending our best warships, they're going to retaliate by launching their best warship, which is better than our warship. And it's just going to be whoever's got the largest numbers or whoever's got the strongest might at the time that's going to eradicate something else. But it's going to be an ongoing conflict that ultimately is going to start off based on misunderstanding.
Yeah. That's how it continues on the planet right now. So
yeah. The reason why we stay divided because of misunderstandings, differences in beliefs, and the unwillingness to remain open-minded to the possibilities that other things can be and other ways can happen.
Well, the only thing that divides us is the difference in culture, right? Because the American person,
we are taught bias from birth. That's it. So it's not just a difference in culture. It is the learned behavior of bias. You are not one of us.
A different. Of course, that's a different culture, though. But genetically, we're the same.
We're all the same.
So
exactly.
Yeah, we're 100% the same. The genetic markers, right, or the genetic mutations that make a person lighter, darker, bigger teeth, bigger hands, taller, shorter. That is just the genetic variation. Okay, that's the same thing happens in nature, but on the DNA level, we're 100% the same, and you cannot tell the difference. Right. So, yeah, you're right. How people are raised, ends up being that's how they were taught to be the way that they are. But I mean, it continues to cycle through, and everybody stays divided instead of like trying to work to one, global goal to all be fed, all be housed, all be safe.
That's a communist model. That's going to be a communist model, because no matter how much or how little you work, you're going to share the resources where everybody has what they need, not being glorified on any
but I don't think
prizes.
I don't think that communism truly believes that. I think that communism still keeps the elites
now
at the top.
We're not talking about the political ideology of communism. We're talking about that there's a difference between the economic communist model versus the economic capitalist model. The capitalist model is making more money off of the effort of somebody else or off of the financial failure of somebody else. A capitalist model is the distribution of resources amongst all parties involved in that ecosystem. So the way
Right.
that everything goes to a government and then that government distributes the resources to its people, that is a communist model. Now, even in a communist model with a monarchy, which is a extra dynamic to the model, the monarchy might have self-privilege where they keep more resources to themselves, but the distribution of resources to the less privileged is still going to be reasonably even, because I don't know all of you, but all of you are going to get some stuff.
Sure.
But the person on the left is not going to get more than the person on the right unless I know the person on the right. It is a communist model because it's evenly distributed. That's the Star Trek model. It's a communist model. Everybody puts in effort. Everybody gets fed every day without having to pay for it. Everybody has their own place to sleep and without having to pay for it. Everybody's got their own clothes without having to pay for it. Some people who have kids have toys and stuff like that for the kids.
But
They just
the
ask
idea,
to replicate.
but the
But there's
idea
no
of
currency
it
in Star
working,
Trek.
yeah, but the idea of it working is that everybody's going to be honest and that everybody's going to share equally. And the problem
Well,
with,
everybody's working towards the same goal.
but with people, there's always
We haven't
people
gotten
that
there yet.
get corrupted,
Yeah.
and then the system always fails. I mean, communism fell apart because it was so corrupt. It was able to fall apart.
People at the top kept all the resources and didn't evenly distribute it the way it should have been distributed.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could have survived in a different way, but
as long as the monarchy, okay, so what caused communism to fall was that there was one authority distributing the resources to the majority.
right.
If you took a communist model and put it into a democratic platform where you have a large group of individuals working together to distribute the resources to everybody, you would almost have the democratic platform, but you would have the resources going to everybody almost indiscriminately. Yes, the people who are in control of the distribution of resources is going to probably keep a little bit more for themselves. And yes, the people who are in control of the distribution of resources is more likely to show favoritism to the people that they know. However, the rotation of authority figures, if it was more frequent the way jury duty is, you would have less people in the distribution of power position for so long, to the point where if I'm only going to do this for 2 years, I don't want to fuck nobody over, because after I get out, somebody else is going to be given to me the way I gave to them. It's exactly the way we were when we were children, when mom said, break the cookie in half and let your friend or your sibling take the piece that they want.
Right.
If I have to divide this up now, and then somebody else is going to divide it up for me later, then I'm going to, it's possible, because I don't want to get fucked over when it's my turn to receive. And
Right.
that mentality is going to allow the distribution of resources to be universal. But that is only in a scenario where even our government is only able to be corrupted because the same political powers are in the same position for 50 years.
Yeah.
If there were 501 new people in that position every 2 years, we would not have a corrupt government. However,
less corrupt.
no,
I think
I was about to say, because it's not going to be corrupt. It's going to be less informed. So we would have a lot more mistakes. We would have a lot more immature and irresponsible behavior, because they don't have the experience to know the outcome of
of course,
20
it's a double-sided coin, right? You have to have the experience.
So it doesn't mean that we would be better. It just means that we would have less self-motivated decisions being made.
Right.
So there's a difference between a corrupt cop. There's a difference between a corrupt cop that is deliberately doing wrong versus a good-intentioned, uninformed cop that is making a bad choice because they don't have the experience. Likewise, as in politics, the difference between a corrupt politician that is getting paid millions of dollars under the table to do something they're not supposed to do, that they know they're not supposed to do, versus somebody who just got in today and accidentally pushed the red button and launched all the nukes.
Okay, so the difference between a politician and a police officer, in theory, is that a police officer gets vetted before and comes from a certain background and works on getting to a certain point that they can become a successful police officer. A politician
they're taught how to catch you. After they get out of police academy, they don't know all the laws in their city and state. And the difference between a police officer that makes a bad choice in the field, where they compromised your rights by accident because they've only been on a job for 2 years versus a police officer who's been on a job for 15, 20 years and they're getting a piece of the take. Is the difference is that a seasoned veteran learned the right way and chose to do it wrong versus an unseasoned person who is accidentally doing it wrong because they don't know the difference. The outcome is still reasonably compromising to you. The only difference is that you would have the mercy of the less educated one to say, well, he didn't know that that wasn't the right thing to do. The same thing with the government. When you think about trades, trade policies, tax laws, tariffs, all this, that, and the other, whether or not we're going to talk this out or just let them fight. Somebody who's been in office that says, well, no, man, after how long is Trump's like 80 something years old? He's been in business for 50 years. In the last 50 years, I found that it makes more sense for us to not fight and get paid versus jump into war and fight and lose folks. But that's 50 years of experience. You and I, not 80 years old, without that 50 years of experience, might be in that exact same situation and say, fuck them, that got nothing to do with us. And that response might be catastrophic to the bigger picture of somebody with more experience. So while, yes, the more experience would lead to more corruption, the less experience would lead to reasonably similar catastrophic outcomes due to the lack of knowledge. That's what I was saying.
Well,
but what was your point?
Well, I was just saying that like a police officer, aims to get there with the, hopefully the good intentions to make society better in his community. At least that's the illusion being propagated, to recruiting, right? But a congressman or a senator comes into power because, they have the silver tongue and they're good in business, and because they've painted a picture of themselves as having some kind of new idea to represent the people. And it never fails,
Well, when you decided that you was going to go into politics, sometimes, not all the times, your original core thought was, I'm going to make a better change in my community. You get corrupted along the way, learning that silver tongue, learning those networking skills, learning the leverage of, lobbyists, and then
learning to work within the constraints of the current system, or being corrupted is completely different. Corrupted implies that your moral compass has been abandoned and that you're only, operating on the pretense of going with the status quo of whatever the corruption is.
I come from the observation that very few individuals are born with the innate ability to be corrupt. So they would have had to have experienced it at some point, unless you grew up in that type of environment.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that they experience it, but they also have to make the choice. You have to, being a coward is, everybody's scared to be brave or be a coward. It's just somebody, like, they're scared of the danger, right? So they make the conscious choice. Well, hey, I'm going to stand up for what's right, and I'm going to be brave at the risk of something happening to myself, or I'm going to, because the situation is dangerous, I'm going to shut up and keep my mouth closed and not speak out about it, and once you make that choice, it's kind of hard to turn back away from that, because now you've already created the reputation, for yourself. So,
and that's something that you got to stick with, and that goes back to your previous question about changing the past by looking into the future. I mean, you're stuck with the decision that you made after you've made it.
But even the people that are corrupt, and even the people that are not corrupt but just made bad decisions,
Oh, there went the mic again. Mike dead. Hey, I tell you what, we're gonna pick this conversation up again because I have to run to the restroom anyway. We can pick up this conversation again tomorrow. We got a decent topic, and I got a lot more time tomorrow night. So if you're available, we can pick up this conversation again tomorrow. Hold on, I'm gonna read what you write up here. So, well, I think that even with bad situations, people can change, and I was gonna get to that too. People can change. People do have the choice. A lot of people fail to change because they're used to the way they are, and some are motivated not to change because of the desperation and the comfort of the resources they're being provided by not changing. And that is where the corruption comes from. You're getting paid enough money to cover your standard of living to do things that you know are not right. And then when somebody catches you, you are identified as corrupt. Well, you did it for the money to provide for your family, but at the same time, you wasn't supposed to do that. You could have taken the bribe once. You could have never taken the bribe, but you kept taking the bribe because you got used to the money. And the fact is that even though you kept telling yourself, after this bribe, I'm not going to do it again, you kept doing it. And that is when people fail to change. And that's the premise of this podcast, is for people to find ways to change, find other ways to resolve their situation so that they're not always making the same bad choices year over year. But I really appreciate you coming to the show, Dylan. We're going to pick this up tomorrow because we have another good topic for you guys tomorrow, in addition to the rest of this topic today. What I'm going to say before I walk off the show is, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.